Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 29. The translation is by Srila Prabhupada, as this verse also appears in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the purport is given by disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Translation. My Lord, this is Brahma speaking to Krishna. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. Purport. This translation is quoted from Srila Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, Chapter 6, Text 84. Lord Krishna is very eager to bestow his mercy upon the conditioned living beings who are uselessly struggling with the Lord's illusory energy, Maya. The conditioned soul struggles for happiness through sense gratification and for knowledge through mental speculation. Both processes ultimately bring him to a morose and hopeless condition. If the conditioned soul surrenders to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and thus acquires even a trace of his causeless mercy, the whole situation is changed and the living entity can begin his real life of bliss and knowledge in Krishna consciousness. Atapi te deva padambuja dvaya prasada leshanu grahita evahi Janati tatvang bhagavan mahimno nachanya ekopi chirang vichinvan. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur and Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Shrishtam Manamapi Shachiputram Atra Sarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupuring Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yatsya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Andeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As tomorrow Sri Krishna Janmashtami is to be celebrated, I chose this verse to speak on. And you may wonder, well, what's the specific connection with Janmashtami? It's a philosophical point that if one gets a little mercy from Krishna, little mercy, then he can understand Krishna's glories. But if you don't get the mercy, then you can study, speculate for a very long time and won't understand who is Krishna. This is relevant to the mention of Krishna's appearance in this world, which comes in the beginning of the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. One verse which, actually there are several verses describing Krishna's appearance in this world, but particularly relevant to Janmashtami is a verse which Srila Prabhupada quoted so many times, Janma karma cha me divyam evang yo veti tatvataha tyaktva dehang punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. There are several verses there which discuss about Krishna's recurring appearance in this world, even though he's unborn. So this verse, Krishna says, Janma, first word of this verse, Janma. And just previous to this, Krishna has said, he's given the statement that he is Aja, which means not born. Ajopi sanavyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim svam adhishtaya sambhavami atma mayaya. He says that even though I'm unborn, and myself, my very person, it doesn't I don't undergo any deterioration. Prior to this, Krishna spoken, Dehinosmin yata dehe komarang yovanang jara tata dehantara praptihi, that bodies go through stages of childhood, youth, old age, and death. But Krishna says he doesn't take birth, and then he doesn't deteriorate. So from this we understand when Krishna says Ajopi sanavyayatma, that when he's speaking about himself, Atma, he's referring to himself, he's not referring to, his very condition is quite different to that of conditioned souls. He's not one of us. He's unborn. But still, he appears in this world, Atma Maya, by his own Maya, which means, Maya means generally understood to mean illusion, by his own mercy, by his own energy. And then, Janma karma cha me divyam evang yo veti tatvataha tyaktva dehang punarjanma naiti mameti sorjana. Krishna says, one who understands that my janma, my birth, and my karma, my activities, because at this stage of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is very much hung up on the subject of karma and of work and of karma tyag, the renunciation of work. So Krishna says that one who knows that my appearance and activities are transcendental, one who understands this properly, on giving up his body, the inevitable relinquishing of the body, he doesn't take birth again, but comes to me. And then the question comes, how are we to understand that Krishna's appearance and activities are transcendental? Well, then we come to this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is, the translation is quoted from Srila Prabhupada's translation of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, where this verse is quoted by Gopinatha Acharya, who is the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who is a greatly learned scholar, was known to be a highly learned scholar. And in the present day, we don't know what scholars are. If someone knows 3 or 4 shlokas, we say very scholarly devotee. But at that time, the culture was, the whole of Navadvip was famous. People would go there to study Shastra. And they would have impromptu debates, just here and there in the streets, on the bank of the Ganga, as is described in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nimai Pandit, he would also do that. So this verse, Atapite Deva Padambuja Dvaya, was quoted by Gopinatha Acharya to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya when Gopinatha Acharya claimed that this sannyasi who had just come to Sarvabhauma's house, he had collapsed in the temple of Jagannath and was about to be beaten because the guards didn't recognize his glories. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya happened to be there, and he was such a respected figure that he restrained the guards, and he saw this is sannyasi, so he took the sannyasi to his house, and eventually the sannyasi revived, and Gopinath Acharya, who was the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma, came, and there was some discussion, not immediately, there was some discussion in which Gopinath Acharya asserted that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Sarvabhauma very rightly, he and his disciples asked, so what's the evidence? And Gopinath said, well, the evidence is, you're such a great scholar, you're asking me, you should know, you've studied Mahabharata, Srimad Bhagavatam. But then he quoted this verse, that you may be a great scholar, and it's quite apt to ask, what is the evidence according to Shastra? But still, one cannot understand the Shastra unless one is blessed with even a little mercy from Krishna. Then he can understand the import of Shastra. This verse also is quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Prataparudra Maharaj, he asked Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that, what is that? Raja kahe Shastra pramane Chaitanya han Krishna tabe pandit shabe tahate bitrishna. Why is it, if all the evidence of the scriptures is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then why is it that so many great learned people, they have no attraction to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? And again, this Sarvabhauma, who had this verse quoted to him previously, he didn't have the mercy. He didn't recognize Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, by the mercy of Gopinath Acharya, who wanted, then he could understand. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he could understand that actually he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then he quoted this verse to Prataparudra Maharaj, that, well, you have to get the mercy. It's not just by study that we can understand. This verse is spoken by Brahma, who's the biggest scholar of them all, Adi Kavi. He was imparted the Vedic knowledge within his heart at the time of his own coming into being. He was imparted the knowledge of the Vedas, and he knows that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but by the arrangement of Krishna's external potency, or internal potency acting through the external potency, then Brahma was also bewildered. He thought that, well, I know who the Supreme Lord is, Narayan. I'm born from the lotus flower which comes from the stem of his navel, and he's mighty and powerful, and I thought that this Krishna was the Supreme Lord, but seeing him running in the cowherd pastures, chasing after cows, and with no shoes on his feet even, and he's sitting down and eating with these cowherd boys who aren't very high class, and eating with them, and sometimes they'll say, while they're eating, they'll say, this is very nice, and give some of their remnants to him, and Krishna may eat it with his left hand. So Brahma had doubts, and that was his vimohana. He became completely illusioned. He stole the cows and the cowherd boys, and Krishna reproduced them by expanding Vishnu forms. It's a great pastime how Krishna in this way gave mercy to all the parents of the cowherd boys and all the cows by becoming their son, and In this way, Brahma, when he saw this, he could understand that, well, actually Krishna is the source of Narayana. And he offered this prayer, that even though Brahma himself is a great learned scholar of the Vedas, but simply by all the Vedas he is to be known. Vedaischa sarver ahameva vedyaha. But it's not only by study that one can understand Krishna. One has to be favored by his mercy. So janma karma cha me divyam evang yo veti tatvataha tyaktva dehang punarjanma naiti ma meti sorjuna. One who understands that Krishna's appearance in this world has got nothing to do with this world. That Krishna comes to this world not like us to try to enjoy it, not like us impelled by our previous activities, but Atma Maya, by his own desire, by his own mercy, he comes. So one who fully understands this, simply by that, he himself no longer has to take birth in this world, but goes to the spiritual world, where Krishna lives eternally. So, how are we to understand Krishna? Through the scriptures. But it's also required to get Krishna's mercy. If one has a skeptical outlook, then he won't understand Krishna. As Srila Prabhupada states in his introduction to Bhagavad Gita as it is, to approach this, one should at least accept theoretically that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because if he's not, as is stated within the text, again and again, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, if he's not the Supreme Lord, then what he says has no value anyway. It's just someone else's opinion. The very fact that it's spoken by the Supreme Lord makes it authoritative, and not just someone else's opinion. Not just a speculation. Srila Prabhupada, in his translation, uses the word speculation, which in modern parlance of scientists and philosophers, they think, well, speculation is very good, because by speculate we look at things from different angles and try to think up some new idea, and in this way you speculate this way, it might be wrong, speculate another way, it might be wrong, and eventually you get your speculation right. And then it's a scientific breakthrough until someone else comes and speculates and finds out that that speculation was incorrect. And this way human society progresses in knowledge. But the Vedic method of acquiring knowledge is actually to take knowledge. It's a completely different approach. The approach that we, sitting here in a tiny little planet, a speck in a tiny little galaxy, to use again modern scientific cosmological outlook, we're on this little planet. We have a very short life. We have limited intelligence, limited senses, and our knowledge is limited. Everything about us is limited, and with all these impediments, we want to try and find out what is knowledge. The Vedic process is completely different. In the Vedic process, it's understood that there are certain facts of reality. There is knowledge. Knowledge coexists with, there's a Vedic technical language, jnanam, geyam. And geyam means that which is to be known. These words are given in Bhagavad Gita also. So that which is to be known, knowledge of it exists simultaneously. In one sense, they're non-different. Just like, to give a mundane example, this is a microphone. So the fact that it is a microphone, of course it could be called something else in a different language, but it has a function to amplify sound, and it has a certain appearance. So the knowledge of that coexists with the existence of the microphone, but at the same time it is independent of the microphone. So Krishna is eternal, and knowledge of him exists eternally, and Krishna and everything else in relationship to Krishna, which is everything else. So that eternally exists. That is the Vedic knowledge, and Vedaischa sarve arahame. Veda means knowledge. Krishna is to be known through the Vedas. How are we to understand? We require Krishna's mercy. Krishna's mercy is given to those who are submissive and devotional. They can understand. This is true of any kind of knowledge. If you want to learn about microphones, if for some reason you want to have a career in microphone technology or whatever it may be, then one should go to an expert and learn. And if you want to learn, you have to be submissive. You can't just insult the professor or whoever's teaching. You have to be submissive. You don't have to be devoted to them, but you have to be, well, at least you have to be respectful. And then that such a person will be, even in the mundane sphere, if someone is an eager student, eager to learn, then the teacher becomes inclined to teach that person. But if they're not interested, if they think they know it all, if they think they can learn it all just by reading some books and speculating, well, with a microphone you might be able to learn a lot by reading books and by speculating, because it's not that complicated. But to understand Krishna, to understand reality, all of reality, well, first of all, what's the first thing we should understand if we are to understand all of reality? There could be several answers to that question. One answer is, the first thing to understand is that we can't understand all of reality, because we're limited, and Krishna is unlimited. Reality is beyond our ability to fully understand. So the first thing is to understand our own limitations. So great humility is required. By studying microphones, one might come to a level where he can invent a new kind of microphone, a better microphone, but we're not going to invent a better Krishna. There's no possibility of that. If one thinks that I will understand by my I have a new theory about Krishna. Krishna was this. I don't want to. There's so many bogus theories about Krishna. This attitude to give some personal interpretation, this is not applicable in the matter of understanding Krishna. Krishna, who is He? He is as He says He is. I am who I am. Now we may say, well, that's Krishna's subjective. Krishna's, he's like that, but I'm entitled to have my subjective opinion. I'm an individual. I can have my own opinion about Krishna. Yeah, you can do. There's a place for everyone who wants to have their own opinion about Krishna. It's called the material world. And those who follow Krishna, who comply with Krishna's plan, they are fit to live in the spiritual world. Why? Because they can understand that Krishna is transcendental. His appearance in this world, His activities in this world, they are not like our appearance and not like our activities. This should be understood from the very beginning, which is why our recent acharyas, especially Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our own Srila Prabhupada, they have been concentrating on speaking and teaching others more about the divinity of Krishna than about the intimate pastimes of Krishna. Because unless we understand that everything Krishna does is untouched by mundane, kam, krodh, lobh, moha, mada, matsarya, lust, greed, lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion and pride, if one doesn't understand this, then when one hears about Krishna's intimate pastimes, one will doubt and think that, well, Krishna's just like me, maybe more powerful, but if I was powerful, I'd get a lot of girls too and enjoy myself. So he's just like me, but maybe more powerful. Maybe I can also become powerful like that, and then I'll do what Krishna does. And then one becomes envious of Krishna by hearing about Krishna. Then if one is not fixed in the proper understanding that I am Krishna's eternal servant, everything Krishna does is free from a personal exploitive motive. Krishna has no base motive. Krishna simply wants to share pure love with others. Everything Krishna does is simply for sharing his pure love. There's nothing mundane in there at all. So my position is simply to serve him and the servants of the servants of the servants of the servants. If one is fixed in that consciousness, then he becomes fit to hear about Krishna's pastimes. He won't become envious or lusty. But someone who's not fixed in that understanding, then they'll misunderstand. But if our understanding is not clear, then everything we hear about Krishna will misunderstand. So Krishna is not easy to understand because he is an exceptional person. We don't meet people who in their childhood, when they're even before the stage of talking, they kill some big demon, they kill so many demons, and throughout life they perform so many activities which are possible only for someone who is fit to be called Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna demonstrates that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But persons who are of demoniac outlook, even despite all the evidence of the scriptures, they cannot understand this. I spoke on that verse last night. Tvam shila rupa charitai parama prakrishtai satvena satvikataya prabalaischa shastra prakyata daiva paramartha vidang mataischa naivasara prakataya prabhavanti bodham. This is a verse by Yamunacharya. He states that Krishna, by his qualities, his character, his prowess, his beauty, as described in the Vedic literatures, is completely obvious that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no competition. This is also stated and understood and accepted by persons who are fully fixed in transcendental goodness. But the persons of demoniac outlook, even though there's all evidence that Krishna is supreme, they won't accept it. Demons, they say, show me God. If there's God, show me God. Well, he showed himself to so many demons, but they still wouldn't accept that he's God. One case in point is that when Krishna became the messenger of Yudhishthira Maharaj to bring as a peace envoy to Duryodhana. Okay, now the battles, everyone's ready for battle. All the different kings have pledged their allegiance to one party or another. Still we didn't start fighting. So there's still time to make a peace treaty. So Krishna went on this menial task. And Duryodhana knew that Krishna was coming. And he thought, well, Krishna is the life of the Pandavas, so let's capture him. And then the Pandavas will lose their life. They'll lose their spirit. So Krishna knew this. He came to the place of the Kauravas, Duryodhana, and Duryodhana had his men capture Krishna. But then they captured him, and there's another Krishna. Oh, he's over here now. So they went to capture him, and again, another. He couldn't capture Krishna. He's not an ordinary person. You can't capture him. He can be tied up by the rope. Mother Yashoda can capture Krishna by the ropes of love. Pranaya Rasanaya. By the ropes of love, Krishna can be tied, but not by physical force. But having seen this, Duryodhana still thought he wouldn't accept Krishna as supreme. He thought it's some magic tricks. There are so many magicians. So, how are we to understand Krishna? By devotion. Bhaktya mama bijanati. Krishna can be understood by devotion, which begins with submissiveness, with faithfulness. So these narrations of Srimad Bhagavatam, they are to, they bolster our faith. One shouldn't even approach Srimad Bhagavatam unless he has some initial faith in Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, there will be misunderstanding. There are people who study Srimad Bhagavatam, but they don't, amazingly, they don't find bhakti there. They don't find Krishna. Even though from the very beginning to the end, there's only glorification of Krishna. But there are persons who study and explain Srimad Bhagavatam, and they don't find Krishna. We may be amazed because we have received Srimad Bhagavatam through Srila Prabhupada, who gave Bhagavatam as it is. Bhagavad Gita also. Most, at least until the merciful advent of Srila Prabhupada in this world, before his coming to the Western world, most people who studied Srimad Bhagavad Gita, they didn't find Krishna. Krishna for them is, a different rhetorical figure who introduces some philosophy that we're all one, or something like this. They didn't find devotion. They didn't, even though Krishna clearly says again and again statements such as Namang dushkushino murha prapadyante naradhamaha maya parita jnana asurang bhavamashritaha. The 4 kinds of sinful people do not surrender to me. The foolish, the lowest among men, those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and those who partake of the nature of demons. So even though there are several statements in Bhagavad Gita like this, in which Krishna clearly establishes his supremacy and that one should surrender to him and be his devotee. But naivasura prakataya prabhavanti bodham. Even though all evidence is given, show me God. I didn't see this. So one has to be submissive. Also in the here, this also important verse which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave such importance to. How are we going to understand Krishna? We should understand Krishna and we go to Krishna. How are we to understand? Understand means we get knowledge, isn't it? But the formula given by Lord Brahma is Jnane prayasamudapasya, giving up the attempt to know simply by one's own brain power. Jnane prayasam udapasya namanta eva. One has to become very humble. Jivanti sanmukharitam bhavadiya vartam. One should pass one's life, or one should live just for the sake of hearing about Krishna from devotees, from people who know Krishna. Sthane stita shuddhikatang tanuvang manobe ye prayasho jitititopi apitaistri lokyam. Whatever situation one may be in, one doesn't have to make any radical changes, but one should adopt this method of hearing, dedicating oneself also, mind, body and words in service of Krishna. And by this method, Krishna, who is unconquerable by weapons, one cannot conquer him. one cannot conquer, one cannot box him up in one's in the box of one's mind and think, oh, now I understood everything about Krishna. But by submissively hearing about Krishna, one can conquer him by love. So again become bhaktya mama vijanati. So by devotion, Krishna can be understood. But what is that devotion? One also has to hear to understand. So, sanmakaritam, one should hear from devotees. Jao bhagavata paro vaishnaver sthane. This advice Sri Damodar gave to the poet from Bengal who thought he knew about Krishna, but who didn't. So the poet from Bengal said he was advised to study Srimad Bhagavatam from a Vaishnava, from a pure Vaishnava. So this learning about Krishna is not just a one-day thing. Janmashtami, okay, today it's Janmashtami, okay, alright, so let's have a festival. So many people will come here, they'll have darshan of the deities, they may go to the pandal, hear something, see a drama and this and that. But if we can instill in them the understanding that it's not just for one day, but we have to dedicate our life to hearing about Krishna and serving Krishna, then we can understand Krishna, then we can go to Krishna. But most people, they don't even have an idea to go to Krishna. Yeah, we'll go to Krishna once a year, Janmashtami. We'll go to Krishna. But to instill this consciousness that it's not once a year, it's every day, every moment, we should be fully absorbed in Krishna. We have to go on hearing. It's not just one time we go to a lecture on Janmashtami, we sit in that. But go on hearing. Understand the importance of human life. This is the opportunity to learn about Krishna. Krishna is not mundane. Krishna is that very special person, that one unique person, who's a person but different to everyone else, because he is the supreme person. That means everyone is subordinate to him. Mataf parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. Everyone is subordinate to Krishna. And our position, jibe surupoi Krishna nityadas. Our position is simply to be a servant of Krishna. Just this we have to understand, that's all. And act on that. But it seems so difficult for us to understand, because life after life we're cultivating viparya smritihi, different kind of consciousness, opposite kind of consciousness. So we have to hear again and again and again, associate with devotees, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, study Srimad Bhagavatam, live Srimad Bhagavatam. As Srila Prabhupada said, we should make Srimad Bhagavatam our life. So in this way it's possible to understand Krishna. Otherwise, if we simply try to speculate with our own intelligence, then even if we are as intelligent as Lord Brahma, we're going to misunderstand. And the evidence is right here in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. But if we become humble and surrender to Krishna and decide, yes, now this life, as Srila Prabhupada said, give this one life to Krishna, then in this one life we can come to the stage of understanding fully, properly, in truth, that everything about Krishna is transcendental. And on the strength of that, we can go to Krishna and never have to come back to this material world. So I've emphasized much here about hearing, as is emphasized again here in Srimad Bhagavatam again and again. And of course there's also chanting, serving, and imbibing the mood of surrender to Krishna, submission to Krishna. There are many, many points to be understood. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the Paramahamsa Samhita, that compilation which is relished by the topmost devotees and by those who want to come to that platform. We're very fortunate by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, who by the arrangement of Krishna appeared in this world just one day after the celebration of Krishna's appearance. So in this verse it's stated, if we can get the little mercy of Krishna, then we can understand Krishna. And that mercy came to us in the form of Srila Prabhupada, and that mercy is still flowing. His divine grace, this is rendered in Hindi and other Indian languages as Krishna Kripa Sri Murti, who is the very form of Krishna's mercy. So that mercy is received, Krishna's mercy. How we get Krishna's mercy? Where is Krishna? We don't know anything about Krishna. He spoke to Arjuna, but then he left. How will we get Krishna's mercy? Well, Krishna left and he stayed also. He stayed in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Swadhamo Bhagate, Dharma Jnana Dibisaha. Kalo Nashta Drishamesha Puranako Dhunoditaha. Krishna, he is the very embodiment of dharma, religious principles, jnana, spiritual knowledge, and everything else that's auspicious and desirable. But Krishna left this world, so that went with him, but Krishna has manifested himself as Srimad Bhagavatam, the literary form of God, and Krishna through the Srimad Bhagavatam, as the Srimad Bhagavatam, he gives the light of knowledge to people in Kali Yuga who are as if blind in the darkness of ignorance. So this Srimad Bhagavatam was given by Srila Prabhupada. The mercy of Krishna comes, as we learn from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and from all scriptures, through the person of the Guru, Brahmanda Brahmate Kono Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. By the mercy of Guru and Krishna, one gets the seed. Some fortunate living being wandering through the universe gets the seed of devotion in his heart. So we have to take that seed and water that by hearing and chanting about Krishna. So let us try to understand this, that to have the opportunity to hear about Krishna is a very great boon, and we should try to extend that to others also. People come to temples, pious people come to temples. They think that coming to see with the eyes, that's it. We came to the temple, we had darshan. But if they can see by hearing, that will be, and have this habit of hearing, that will be more beneficial for them. For people to come to the temple is very good. That's a big step up from not coming. But even a big step above just coming and taking darshan is hearing. Because generally people don't like to hear what they need to hear. We can of course speak in a way that about Krishna what people like to hear, but generally that's not as beneficial for them as what they don't like to hear. As Krishna himself states, and in there in Srimad Bhagavatam, that Tadodu Sangha Utsrija Satsu Sajeta Buddhiman Santa Evasya Chindanti Manovya Sangam Uktibihi. Having understood that this world is a dump, it's a mess, we don't belong here, we have to go to Krishna, then we should give up bad association, and being very intelligent we should associate with saintly persons. And what will the saintly persons do? They will slash our misconceptions with their words. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said a sadhu is one who cuts, who slashes just our misconceptions, just like the animal is going for slaughter and is chopped. So in the same way the sadhus are those who mercifully chop our misconceptions and attachments to pieces. Generally, people don't like to hear this. They don't want. They say, yes, we like Krishna. This much. Yeah, we like it. Janmashtami, we'll go. Yes, once a year we'll go. We're devotees. We like that. And, yeah, once a year. That's nice. Or maybe even twice a year. But to take up hearing about Krishna, verse by verse from Bhagavatam. If we go verse by verse through Bhagavatam, we'll come across many verses which will almost certainly will not be pleasing to people who are materially attached. Those are the verses we need to hear more. Otherwise, the desire to surrender to Krishna, to go out from this material world, that won't arise. As long as we're thinking this material world is a very nice place, then why shall we want to go to Krishna? But that is foolishness, to not want to go to Krishna, even if we're self-centered. Bhakti means to fully give ourselves to Krishna. But even if we're self-centered, then the best selfishness is to think, well, what's my ultimate benefit? My ultimate benefit is not in this world, I should get out of it. And therefore this is actually, it's an incentive to surrender to Krishna, to become Krishna conscious. So, very great topics of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Materialistic people cannot understand them. If we get the mercy of Krishna, we can understand. Not by brain power, not by study. That is required. Study of scripture is required. Especially those who are supposed to be brahmanas and supposed to be teaching that. But that understanding, as Srila Prabhupada said, comes from standing under. Hare Krishna. Any question about this, please?